There we go. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We'll go around the horn and introduce each other real quick. I'm Jake Farbman with the Council of County Colleges Center for Student Success. And I'm just going to call on people as they're laid out on my screen. We'll go to Callista next.
Callista Smith, I'm the Degrees When Due coach for New Jersey.
And Betty.
Hi, I'm Betty Simmons. I'm the Vice President of Student Development and Enrollment Management, the wayward person that Callista keeps trying to get to from County College of Mars.
Betty, thank you. Thanks for being with us. Jennifer.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Pokai, and I work at iHub as a research analyst, but I also provide project management support for Degrees When Due.
Jennifer, thank you. And a new face for all of us, Annie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Annie Koa. I'm Senior Advisor at the Office of the Secretary of Higher Education. I am in month 2, I think 2 or 3 on the job, so I'm excited to learn from all of you.
Annie, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you being with us and your help with us now and going forward. Vanessa.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vanessa O'Brien McMasters. I'm from Atlantic Cape Community College. I'm the Dean of Institutional Effectiveness, Research and Planning, and I'm sitting in for Dean Paula Davis, who couldn't make the meeting today.
Vanessa, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Richard.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Richard Cole. I'm the registrar at Middlesex College and co-chairing the Degrees When Due committee with Megan Adlai, who is our Dean of Institutional Research. Thank you.
Richard, thank you. Thanks for being with us. We appreciate it. Let's see. Jackie.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm the Managing Director, Registrar at Bergen Community College. So happy to be with you today.
Jackie, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank
Madeline.
Hi, I'm also at Bergen Community College. I work in the Institutional Research Office.
Madeline, thanks for being with us. And there's a familiar face. Hey, Peter.
Hello, everybody. Pete Vita, Dean of Enrollment Services at Bergen Community College. I'm happy to be with you all today and seeing some of my colleagues like Richard, which I haven't seen in quite a while. Good to see you again, Richard. Good to see you all.
Well, thank you all for being with us today. It's scheduled for an hour. I don't know if we'll go the full hour. I have a couple quick updates for you, then we'll turn it over to Callista. So quick update number 1. The Degrees When Due project is going to be coming to a close within a few months. We have 1 or 2, maybe 3 more monthly meetings left throughout the summer. And what we're going to do, there are 2 things here that I want to share with you. One, I was charged to try to put together some professional development for all the colleges in New Jersey, community colleges in New Jersey, regarding how can we best support adult learners. And so I thought, okay, well, let's go to our work being done at our community colleges. And then I slept on it and I thought an additional step. I said, well, if we've got 24, 25, 23, I don't know what the number is. If we've got all these states participating in this, and we have all these innovations taking place all throughout the country, not just in New Jersey, why don't we just open this up to the entire country? So I took the idea to the folks at IEP. So thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Callista. And thanks to Leanne Davis, the project point person who's not on the line today. They said, you know, that's a good idea. Let's do it. The first webinar was a couple weeks ago, featured the folks in Michigan and Kellogg Community College. It was terrific. How they utilized their free community college program and targeted it directly to adults, and how they incorporated a lot of the lessons in the Degrees When Due program to help support adult learners coming back through their College Promise program. And so we have an open invitation from Leanne directly. So for those of you that have been utilizing Degrees When Due, that have found it to be helpful in innovating and helping to create some best practices, send me an email. Let me know you're interested. And I will get that information to Leanne so that your college can be featured in one of these national webinars throughout the summer. We would love to feature colleges from New Jersey. We know that when this was more of a closed network, just available to those institutions participating in Degrees When Due, we know that Mercer was featured at one time with its new online student onboarding system and student support system. We'd love to open that up to all of you for community colleges throughout the entire country to learn from you. So if you have an idea or something that you've done as a result of Degrees When Due, please reach out to me. We'd be happy to have you featured nationally. So that's part one. Part two, in the same vein, we'd also like to take that information, get a sense of who's really benefited from all of this by participating in this. And we want to do a showcase sometime in the fall of all of our participating institutions from Degrees When Due for all of the community colleges in New Jersey as a best practices, lessons learned. Here are some tools you can take. I know that IHEP is working on launching a degree auditing tool, if I'm correct, a degree audit. Is that correct, Calista? Is it a degree auditing tool? Degree auditing tool. I was on the preview webinar. It's going to be released sometime soon with the goal of making it available to all community colleges. So we could partner with that degree auditing tool being launched as well in this showcase that we want to do. So just want to give you folks some opportunities to present at the national level and at the state level. Not sure yet if that convening that we have in New Jersey is going to be in person or virtual, but either way, I think it'll be nice to do some professional development for everybody after going through this long pandemic that we've gone through. So those were my announcements. I'd like to turn it over to Calista for announcements and updates. Calista and Jennifer, I should say, updates from IHEP. And then time permitting, I'd just like to go around the horn with those of you on the line, get a sense of where you are with the Degrees When Due project, and if you have any questions for any of us. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to Calista and Jennifer.
All right, and I'll start sharing my screen in a moment. But Jennifer, I don't know if there was anything you wanted to add about the degree auditing / degree mining tool that you thought would be helpful.
Not really. As Jake said, it should be, we're hoping to have it released in June. One thing to add, in July, we are already starting to plan our next kind of nationwide webinar, if you will. It's going to be on institutional debt forgiveness programs, forgiving student debt at institutions. But as Jake said, we'd love to hear from all of you if anyone's interested in presenting on something innovative they're doing related to DWD. And then also, I believe it's next month, we've already scheduled our research team to join New Jersey's meeting next month to answer any questions you have related to the July 31st reporting date. So.
Do you mind if I interrupt and ask a question about that debt forgiveness? In light of the new, the HERF 3 monies, we've been in, I just literally got off a meeting about this and looking at debt forgiveness from January 2020 forward. So the timing is perfect for that. I know that they've been talked about at the business affinity groups. So any resources that you have for that, even preliminary, would be helpful if you wouldn't mind, like to direct to a specific website or a professional agency, that would be great.
Sure, that's kind of one of the reasons that sparked us looking at this topic, because we hear in all the state level meetings that questions around, you know, the use of funding and how, who's doing it well and so forth. And so we are going to be asking for questions ahead of time, I believe, in our next newsletter that goes out, asking institutions to submit questions they have to try to get the answers proactively so that we can answer your questions during the webinar. If you can't attend the webinar, it will be recorded and available to everybody in the learning management system. And then we also plan on highlighting an institution that's within DWD in Michigan that has had a program for some time now, and kind of their whole process, planning, implementation, and then sustaining that program.
Which school is that?
So we don't have a full commitment from them. We're talking to them, but it's Kalamazoo Valley Community College, I believe it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll drop the link in the chat here so you can preview.
Thank you. Thanks for the questions.
And I know it might, it's still, so much has happened on the federal front since the last time we sent when HERF was first announced. I know we had a link to some of that preliminary information, but we'll keep in mind how resources should be, the information to get out to you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jennifer. Yes, so our June meeting, we'll talk a little bit more about research and also if the degree mining, degree auditing playbook is ready, we'll spend some time on that. So I'll share my screen here. And this is somewhat of technical assistance, but also part, how can I help giving you some kind of tips that other institutions are talking about. So one, I want to understand what hurdles you are seeing, and I know you're in different places. I know some of you, and I don't know if anybody on the call was doing both reverse transfer and adult re-engagement. Some are just focused on adult re-engagement. But I wanted to point out some of the things that have been talked about in some of the other states we're working with. So one of the things, we just had a nice conversation with some folks in Arkansas about what barriers they were seeing and some of their challenges. And so people were seeing that of their universe of interest after they were doing the degree audits and running their records, they were surprised about the percentage of their students who were not Pell eligible. They thought, especially because it was not reflective of their general population, and they thought they would see more Pell eligible or even Pell recipients in it. So they were realizing that some had a disproportionate SAP issue. And then there's also a question is, especially for adults, did they not complete the FAFSA for their most recent term? Some people are just like, well, I'm just going to bootstrap it. I don't want to mess with the paperwork. I'm just going to take a class at a time and not complete the FAFSA. So I didn't know if anybody else was running against some surprises or issues when they were looking at students that are out doing outreach to or have done looked at in their universe of interest regarding financial aid, particularly Pell eligibility. Okay. One other issue that has been coming up is course substitutions. So of course, after you do the degree audit on your universe of interest, and I know some of you are taking it step by step with limited technology and doing a lot of manual components, but one institution was having a harder time getting a certain academic department on board to say, hey, we're seeing these type of courses. Are there other equivalent are there other substitutions we could consider? So one of the tips that we were talking about is how to almost do a special onboarding or reminder with some of the academic departments, particularly academic deans, about degrees when due and some common courses that may need substitution, if possible, or prior learning assessment, or even thinking about course offering. If you're seeing a lot of students who are missing a certain amount of course, and you say, okay, is there enough demand here about among potential re-entries or those who are re-enrolling that we want to offer an additional section or make sure we offer a section that is convenient for working adults? So that has been something that's come up. Remediation access. So some of the people coming in, maybe they were strong students in all but one area, or maybe they needed even more help, but they were passing. And some people are thinking through how to promote the bridge programming that already exists at their institution to the degrees when due population that might be re-enrolling, and thinking about some nice connections around remediation for the group who have already shown interest in re-enrollment. The other piece of on the course side is there was one institution in Arkansas who ran into this public speaking hurdle, where public speaking was one of the required courses that was missing. And so they're trying to think about that differently, both in terms of course substitution, but there was also some encouragement to think about that requirement differently. Is there some other ways that people can demonstrate competency in oral communication without making it a class? Or is it more crucial to certain majors than other majors? Is this something that should hold someone up from getting a degree that's meaningful? So those are some of the conversations that people were having around courses. So I know I just rattled off 3 different ideas about courses and how that is happening in some other institutions after they've done this degree audit and started looking at getting people back. What are some of your experiences when it comes to coursework and getting students back in to complete courses?
You know, Callista, one of the things that we have struggled a little bit with is we have put an age limit on our credits. And so if a student was at CCM, let's say 10 years ago, some of the credits that they've earned, we're gonna require them to repeat those credits because we've got an age limit on the credits, and it's 7 years. And it's in particular an issue in the sciences, in mathematics, and in some of the other programs like computers, where the concepts and the content has changed in the course of the 10-year period. And so we're trying to work with individual departments as to whether or not, when you talk about course substitutions, whether we could do course substitutions, or more importantly, if we could just honor the credit. And so the content may have been relevant 10 years ago, not so much this year, but you know, we want to make sure that we're getting students through. So that's, you know, we haven't come up with a good answer on how to manage that. So we're doing it on a case by case, but that's one of the obstacles, or the hurdles, I guess, as you're calling it, that we see as we're trying to re-engage some of our past students.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Is anybody else running into that credit recency issue and doing anything creative around that? Okay. Anyone else want to share experiences they're seeing around courses? Okay. So then the last couple of things are more kind of internal system relationship items. So as we all know, there's times where you upgrade your systems or you migrate data, and it might have only been 4 years ago, but just that connection to past data that was in a past system. People are thinking creatively about that. And how to mine those old data systems and connect it to information in the new system. So I think that's a lot of times it's so unique to what type of transition you have. But Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the data mining tool has a set of questions to help people think about that in some creative ways to work around those bridges between system migrations.
Yes, it has a pretty robust repository of different guides and models, and also, I believe, some code as well. So definitely frameworks, models based on where you're at, where to go from here, next steps, and so forth.
And the other piece people are finding critical at this time, we talked about, you know, connecting to academic deans for courses, but also connecting to advisors. And also institutions have different ways they engage adult learners or even transfer students. So all those people who may engage with that learner as they're thinking about coming back, making sure that they understand the options, any kind of creative thing you're doing, especially because the world keeps evolving, whether it's, hey, now we have some debt forgiveness options, or hey, now we have some new course options. All of that, just making sure people are connected. So that was another theme that was coming up that we can definitely pay attention to. What hurdles are you seeing that maybe didn't come up on this slide that you would like some ideas from us as coaches or your peers? And you're welcome to put anything in the chat if something comes to mind. So I know most of you are in that contacting students. Some of you may be in different phases. So I think I've shared some version of this before. I just changed the graphics to make it a little more interesting because this is, and sometimes we have some new folks or new staff, new roles. But again, this is one of the most, the pieces where effort is often, you need some encouragement to keep going and keep the contacts going. So just some creative resources, whether it's using People Finder or Alumni Finder, leveraging work study or summer school work study students can be options, and multiple touch points. You might get a little bit of pickup as people start seeing other people in their family or friends circle graduate. They might think, oh, maybe that's something I can do. So you might find that there's some energy around this season of May where people are being responsive, and it could be a way to leverage social media. I think that's one thing that we see a little bit more of a hit in around graduation time with social media. So there might be some way to play into what people are sharing, or even some of you who might have had some people. I know there were a few colleges that were ahead of the curve and had some students enrolled this past semester. And so they might be sharing their grades, or you might encourage them to hashtag, all those cool things that there's other people even more sophisticated than me in doing that. Those are just some other ways to reinforce the message on top of any direct contact you are doing with students. Anybody doing anything interesting in that space you want to share?
So
Well,
is People
oh, I'm sorry.
Finder, I'm sorry.
No, Peter, go ahead.
Thank you. Is People Finder a proprietary software that is used by institutions in terms of locating people that have outdated directory information? I mean, who's using People Finder on this call? Anybody?
Is anybody using People Finder on this
No,
call?
we're not.
I will double check. I know I know Alumni Finder has some fees. I think People Finder might be smaller, and I think some people are also doing some of those whitepages.com searches for people on top of that. And I know we keep talking about Michigan, but they have a history from Project Win-Win of doing that. I know some of the people in Michigan are using it. Jennifer, what other states have been aggressive in using that you know?
I think, well, there are a couple different services that are similar to People Finder. I know Kentucky is using something different, but it's, this similar concept. And I believe often they'll give you a few free searches, but then once you go over X amount per month, you have to pay a monthly fee is typically how it works, but I can gather some of that information for everyone.
Yeah, and I'll get some details on that. So those are just some of the things that people have been using.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
No problem, Peter. So of course, as you start reaching out, and some people are re-enrolling, as well as some of your degree awarding process. I know some colleges, now that they've done degree awards for those who were actively enrolled this past semester, they are looking at their degrees when due students who met all the eligible academics and say, okay, let's give them an award over the summer. So this is a good time to make sure everybody on your team is clear about the policy and steps for awarding students who met all the academic requirements, especially if you're using some debt forgiveness or you're waiving some fees. And then also things for re-enrollees. So this is a good checkpoint, especially because you might have laid out the whole process in December or January, and people who might have a discrete role at the end of the process haven't been, involved in meetings or paying attention. So this is oftentimes a time to be more intentional with those people who are at the end of the process. So like, okay, remember, this is what we're doing. So, and you can see Jennifer put in the chat Kentucky's resource, which was Fast People Search. And again, as you're making some updates like with the HERF and debt forgiveness policies, even other changes you're making, Betty talked about the credit recency and some creative ways people are thinking about that on the case-by-case basis. It's oftentimes good to sync up and say like, hey, we're seeing these kind of common things. And while we're doing it on a case-by-case basis, the 3 advisors who are looking at this or the 2 transcript analysts, let's make sure we huddle and share some ideas about how we're working through this or offering some new solutions so that there's consistency in how a decision might be made. And then also knowing that students who are re-enrolling haven't been there for a while, and you want to reintroduce them to the new experience, especially because a lot of times they think, oh yeah, I remember last time it was like this, and they were already intimidated about going back, and then everything changes. There's a new registration system, there's a new academic center. So thinking about some warm handoffs to support resources, as well as they might need additional hand-holding if there are various system changes. So, this is a good time over the summer to reinforce those connections, especially if you're starting with the trickle of re-enrollees, that as you get your process repeated and over time, having a good system that just makes your campus a good place to get back on the on-ramp to your institution. And I know some of you have been doing some form of adult re-engagement at various points for multiple years. So feel free to share any ideas or things that you found that have worked for you.
One thing I can add is that we recently were exploring a partnership with CALE, with Council for Adult Experiential Learning. And we're in the beginning stages of that. They also are a partner with Achieving the Dream as an Achieving the Dream institution. So we are currently exploring that both with, they were center of one of our New Jersey State grants for the OMIC Challenge, the Opportunity Meets Innovation Challenge. That partnership, we built a good portion in the on-ramp for engaging adults. So I don't really have anything to report, but they certainly are seem to be a great partner so far in the willingness, and have been successful with other institutions as well.
Great point. They are a good resource for, some good practices out there. Anything else?
One of the other initiatives that I'm sure we're doing at Atlantic Cape and Bergen as well, we're trying to, and we have for the past 2 years, reimagined our workforce development area, and are trying to re-engage the adults through workforce development. And then once they get reconnected in that space, then talk to them about, well, you started your degree at CCM, several years ago, maybe you might want to refocus on that. And so strengthening the relationship between our non-credit side and our credit side. In the past, we've been 2 very different entities. And so now we're trying to come to the table and share a meal together, if you will, and share the students at the same time. So again, I don't have any yay wins just yet on that because we really are just starting that space. And I guess even at Bergen, because we're changing our platform with Elevate, I guess you all are doing the same thing as well, as part of a consortium. We're hoping that that will help us in some way really isolate those students and then move them over to the credit side to complete their degrees.
Can I ask who's currently using Elevate? Betty, are you using it?
So we're about to launch it
Mhm.
in a week, and there was a consortium of several community colleges in the state that are part of this launch. I don't know where everybody else is, but we're expected to launch our version of Elevate this week, next week.
Okay.
Do you have it down at Atlantic Cape, Vanessa?
No, we don't. In fact, we just talked about it. We talked about it again this morning for funding opportunities that potentially are coming up through the, which was it? The Booker Menendez.
Oh.
Jake, you would know. I can't think of it. That felt like it was 12 hours ago. So
Yeah, I'm gonna have to double check.
it was something. It was something that's due Friday, and we were talking about, and we talked about that. You know, we still have this gap that we are working on. So, you know, we're talking a lot about leveraging CRM Recruit and how to move the CE people into the prospects of CRM Recruit.
Yep.
So we're in the mix of all of that. I'm sorry if I'm not being clearer. But.
No, it makes perfect sense. But, you know, it's interesting because that's one of the things where we decided, because it is different than Colleague itself. And we too have CRM Recruit. The two have to talk to one another so that we're really sharing the students. So that's a little bit of the delay, but it's going to get us to where we need to be, because as soon as they come in through Elevate, then we on the credit side can communicate with them through CRM Recruit as
right.
well. And then if they are already involved with a college, then we can send them, because we also then have CRM Advise, then we can send them some communications through Advise to say, hey, you started your degree. We see that you're on the workforce side. Why don't you package all of your credentials? So.
Yeah, I would love to know more about that if I could maybe connect with you offline, because that you're probably 6 months ahead of us. And we just also are implementing CRM Salesforce as well. So we've just figured out a way, I think, even though through data optimization to be able to load the CRM Recruit information into CRM Salesforce. I don't mean to digress, but so what's happening is that we've gotten all of these different resources for funding for technologies, whether it be through Jake, I'm sure you hear it all the time, between CCOG, you know, it's just been this bounty. Pete, I see you nodding. And you come to a point as, you know, as institutional effectiveness, I'm like, can everybody time out, please? And let's just take a breath and see how everything talks to each other, and who do we need? What kind of experts do we need to have it all talk together? You know, we're initiative rich. So that's sort of where I'm just providing a context and kind of debriefing my brain a little bit just from the context of a day. I mean, in the course of one day, I feel like I've talked about 12 things, all initiative rich in the same vein. So
I like that. I like that term, Vanessa, initiative rich. That's very good.
I just made it up.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Yeah.
This concludes the group counseling portion of the ceremony. Thank you for your patience.
No worries. And there's a couple of comments on Elevate, and it's good for us because I think as your coach, because we're about to hit the phase where we're trying to help you integrate into like your day-to-day work and your ongoing for after the initiative. So we probably will have more initiative-rich conversations or more digression. So I welcome that, because I think we want to make sure we support you in integrating it to what it exists, because we don't want, after this official degrees when due section is after the coaching leaves, after the learning management system comes down, we want you to feel like you have everything you need to really do what you want to do for students. And also, I want to make sure I'm connecting dots with Elevate. So am I correct that all New Jersey, at least community colleges, have access to Elevate now? And this is part of it's part of the information system that's engaging with the front end of the student experience. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I see Jake is shaking his head. So correct me to understand what Elevate is.
I think it was only those institutions that expressed an interest. I think this was something, did we do a joint purchasing consortium, Betty? Yeah, I
Gotcha.
thought so.
Can we still get in on that if we missed it? Do you know?
I'll find out.
Okay. Thanks.
You know, again, at Bergen, it's being used through the continuing education side of the house, not so much on the credit side. But the integration between the credit and non-credit is definitely there. And I do recall Christine Gillespie, who runs our continuing education, that she did have originally issues with Elevate in terms of how it did communicate with colleagues. So I see the notes here, and yes, indeed, having your IR team on this from the very beginning is important.
Absolutely.
I would just agree with that. I would say even at Bergen, we haven't 100% fully resolved some of those issues with how Colleague and Elevate communicate. So, you know, I think Elevate is a great tool, and you know, the continuing ed folks love it. But you know, just a slight note of caution that part is tricky.
And at Bergen, we're not a recruit CRM user. We use Hobson's Radius, which now has been bought out by CollegeWorks. So I think we're one of two institutions in the state that are using Hobson's Radius as part of the enrollment CRM.
Great. I'm glad we're having these conversations, because that'll help us do some embedding. And I don't know who all on the call is still doing some reverse transfer, either from the past year or not, but I know we've been heavy on the adult re-engagement, but I also just wanted to pass on some of the resources in the learning management system, particularly some good webinars to kind of refresh how you're doing reverse transfer, or if you're thinking about doing it differently, including strengthening that partnership with the university and making sure you're in the right place with data sharing and communicating, especially after students may leave your college without a degree in the upcoming terms, and how to ready for that relationship to continue to make sure they have all that they've earned on the way. And, you know, communicating to those students about what the opportunity is, and making sure that the benefit is clear to them. And then also how you keep that degree audit process going and reverse transfer. That's a natural piece. So I just wanted to highlight those resources. I know we haven't talked much about that because most people wanted to get going with adult re-engagement, but there still are some really good resources in the learning management system with reverse transfer. Any questions or comments about reverse transfer that people had? Okay. Well, here's how to reach me whenever you need help. This our standard slide. And again, as Jennifer mentioned, we'll have some help in June. But as we kind of close out, it'd be good to just do a round robin. That'll help us make sure we have any additional things you need for June, and also making sure we have some connections. So if we'll just do a round robin about like where you are with your processes and anything you just think you need. So I'll go in order of my camera. And Betty, we'll start with you, Dr. Simmons.
So as you know, both you and Jennifer, and I do appreciate your patience, we've been going back and forth at CCM with our involvement with Degrees When Due, with so many other things that we were exploring. This one sort of fell off the rails. So I have one more meeting with the college president and my two academic colleagues to confirm our participation in this. I'm hoping, because just from this time with you all this afternoon, I'm re-energized about the conversation, especially because enrollment is going to be critically important for the future. And we all know that the adult population is where a good part of that focus needs to be. So I hope to get back in touch with you, Callista, to say, yay, we're ready now. What do we have to do to catch up? Because we've been doing some things that my colleagues have spoken, but we haven't done it as part of this initiative. So
Great. Well, we're glad to meet you where you are and just pick up and keep running. So I'll follow up, and I'm happy to have like a meeting, a team meeting just with whoever you have as your core team that's getting involved. So just let me know.
will do. Thank you.
And Vanessa, I know you're sitting in for your colleagues, but how are things going to your understanding, and if there's any support you need?
You know, I can tell you that I see it from the IR side when we're trying to put the data together, that I know that there's work happening at the front line, but as you said, Dean Davis is sort of managing this project. I come to see it when we go to do the report. So this meeting is very helpful for me to sort of get a sense and to know that there's additional resources available. So while I don't have any information to share, this has been a very beneficial meeting for me. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Good. And then in June, we'll probably have much more of a focus on the IR piece, as people now are kind of reporting, okay, who re-enrolled, did anybody complete, all that kind of stuff.
You mentioned it. When's the date for that? I'm sorry.
Oh, that's a good question.
Sorry.
Well, we'll get it to you by the end.
Thank you.
Richard.
So where do I begin? It's been a really interesting experience. These calls are very interesting because I share a lot of the experiences that my colleagues have been sharing. For Middlesex, it's been, I think the biggest piece for us for success, for the limited success we have, has really been doing deep data dives and looking at who's here. Students are here. Some of them are coming back visiting. We're struggling with the whole outreach on, how do we, in fact, when we're on this call, I'm writing to a student now that I've been working with, for instance, who we're trying to see if she could transfer some credit back from Montclair. She's here as a visiting student. And the issue for us with her is Gen Ed. Will she meet the associates Gen Ed requirements to award the associates? Because we want to make sure that the student's meeting the Gen Ed requirements. And then I see an email from another student who wrote and said, hey, I attended years ago and never applied. And I'm like, wait a minute, this may be a degrees when due student. Let me see. And sure enough, it is. So these students are kind of converging back on the campus, and which is a great thing. But they're coming from, you really have to have someone who's kind of looking at this. And that's been really important. And it takes a lot of time to look at that and do that kind of data review. So that's kind of one challenge we're facing. The other one is communications. Reaching out to these students, re-engaging them, finding them. That's also been a challenge. We've had several meetings, and we are going to be doing another round of trying to do some outreach. I've identified a population of student who has completed but never applied in active programs. And then there's another layer of students that we are inactive because they've been gone a number of years, but they've completed. So we are now trying to figure out, how do we reach out to them? I tried sending them an email, for instance. I heard from 2. Which was great, but it was a little disappointing because I was hoping, I said, here you are, you've completed, no cost to you. We can award you the degree. We do still have an application process, even though we were going to make it very easy. Just respond to the email, make sure we have your updated information. But yet the response rate to that has been low. So we're trying to come up with a more glitzy, marketing campaign to these students. So those have been some of the biggest challenges. But I feel like we've had some successes. We have been able to re-engage with about over 3%, over about 8% of our UOI we've re-engaged with so far. And currently we're at about 3.5% graduation rate that we have graduated since we've started the initiative. So our numbers as we meet seem to be going up and in the right direction. Slowly, but still in a positive direction. And I think it's in introspection, we're learning a lot about ourselves and our processes, which I think has been rewarding and eye-opening for many of us. So I said a lot,
great.
sorry, but yeah.
No, that's good. That's all good stuff. Great to have that update, and also think about highlighting what you might need for outreach. Bergen.
Well, it was good to hear Richard citing, these students that are reaching back out and, completing their requirements. We're experiencing the same thing. I mean, obviously, we just completed our commencement ceremonies and graduation, and we did a lot of the degree auditing. And it wasn't done electronically. It was done by thousands of sheets of paper being printed, being delivered to certain staff, advisors, counselors. They were going through it, fine-combed, some of the course substitution issues and outdated and catalog year and all these other things came into play. But we were very successful, again, in doing that. We take a lot of time and effort and, blood, sweat, and tears in making it happen. Jackie's on this call. She may be able to add something, being the person that actually does a lot of this, reports directly to her. Along with that, we have done reverse transfer. We just finished our agreement with Stockton University, so we're very happy with that. We have more and more colleges that are being engaged in this process in terms of working with stop outs and readmits. We do go back 3 years, 5 years on a regular basis, doing text messaging and emailing, etc., to try to encourage them to come back. We just started a new program in cybersecurity. So we use any opportunity to do that kind of outreach in a global way to try to say that, oh, you didn't have cybersecurity before. Well, now you have it. Now I'll consider coming back. So we're quite busy in putting these initiatives together. Our challenge still is, although that's going to change now, because from a strategic enrollment management standpoint, we are looking to try to choreograph all aspects of this, from the readmit engagement, stop out engagement, the degrees when due, reverse transfer, the degree audit, where we're aggressive with that. So students have to opt out of graduation as opposed to opting in. And we do give them every opportunity to do that. It does make a difference in helping with our graduation numbers. But the challenge is really, we have a new president, as you know, Dr. Friedman, who was over at Hudson for many years. He's great. He's definitely into the workforce development aspect of what we do, and in terms of combining, what happens within the community education side, workforce development, and what happens on the credit side. So I can see that we're going to have a much more aggressive engagement in those terms. So we're very excited. I'm very excited about that because it could open up new opportunities for us. So, I'll leave it at that. Jackie, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Peter, I'm good. What is it that you wanted me to comment on?
On the graduation, Lynn's efforts.
Oh, okay, yes. Well, I think we had a total of 1,024 graduates this year. Lynn will be going in on Thursday to print the diplomas to send them out. So we had a good population of students this year for graduation.
Thank you. Madeline,
that's all I have.
You want to add anything, Madeline?
I don't think I have anything. I think you did a great job. We're, working on the reporting side of things. And we'll be meeting with the team that's been doing, the degree audits to make sure we're capturing everything as accurately as possible.
Great, thank you, guys.
Awesome. That was fabulous. And I'll just leave one nugget before I turn it back over to Jake for the final minutes. Among all our degrees when due coaches, one of the conversations we've had is, how do we make the case, or how do we help institutions make the case for having the infrastructure and team to assist with adult re-engagement and just re-enrollment in general, reverse transfer, just like you would in the admissions office for first-time admissions, and helping think through that case, like how much institutions allocate to that admissions recruitment process, even if there was just a fraction of what is typically allocated to that part of the process allocated to re-engagement with people who have already touched your campus at some point. What would be the overall benefit to the institution, the students, of course, as well as staffing? So I think that's just a really interesting question that I think we'll all continue to look at and share to think about sustainability of this work. So, Jake, I'll turn it back over to you.
Calista, thank you. And thanks everybody for those detailed updates. I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. It's been wonderful having this forum each month to get together, to learn from each other. Always appreciate your support, Calista and Jennifer. Thanks for all you've done for us at the center and for all the colleges coaching them along the way. I did put the date of the next meeting, June 29th at 3 p.m. If you don't have the Zoom info, just shoot me an email. I can add your name to the calendar invite, of the IHEP DWD data folks are going to be joining us to help with those reporting requirements. If there isn't anything for the good of the order, I just want to thank everybody for taking the time this afternoon and make this a very productive monthly meeting for our adult re-engagement efforts. Thank you all for the continued work you're doing. And if there's anything we can do at the center or state level to assist all of you, please just reach out. That's my job, is to, you all have difficult jobs. Let me try to make it a little easier. So if there's anything we can do, please just let me know. With that, we'll call it a meeting. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you real soon.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Everybody. Nice to
Take
meet you.
care. Bye.
Thank
Okay,
you.
bye-bye,
Take care,
everyone.
Peter.